Wildcard 6 is looking like one of the most popular strategies in FPL this season, so today we're going to take a look at the best players to buy in each of the positions. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like. Let's jump straight into it. So we're starting off looking at our goalkeepers. Obviously there's two main metrics that we want to look at for picking the best goalkeeper going forward, and that's going to be saves and clean sheets. Now, taking a look at the best goalkeepers for saves from game week 1 to 5, it is Flecken who is currently leading the way with 28. Now he's obviously 4.5 million, one of the cheaper goalkeepers on this list, and again, definitely looking like one of the more decent options. Obviously, when we look at the clean sheets, it's going to matter a little bit more. But obviously, we want to be picking goalkeepers who are getting a lot of saves. Now, Pope's up there with 24, a little bit more expensive than Flecken. Then, of course, Raya as well with 23. I believe the majority of his saves did come in the previous match against Man City, because I don't think he was anywhere near this top 8 list, or top 7 list that we've got until that game against Man City. So he's now up there with 23 saves, and he's definitely one of the best options you can get in goals. He has risen price to 5.6 million. We've also got Sanchez, the Chelsea number 1, at 4.6. He's picked up 21 saves. And then we've got some of our lower goalkeepers in there at 4.5, with Henderson, Hermansen and Ramsdale from Southampton. So looking at the best defences as well, obviously we want to be trying to get goalkeepers who are going to keep a lot of clean sheets. Now Liverpool are, I would say, by far the best defence so far this season. In terms of expected goals conceded, they're only at 3.7, and in terms of actual goals conceded, they've only conceded 1. Now in terms of picking a goalkeeper, obviously Alisson's a little bit more expensive, and then Liverpool's fixtures aren't great. Again, we'll look at them in a little second. So I probably wouldn't be looking at Alisson here. I think you're probably going to be better off looking at a Liverpool defender rather than covering off the defence with Alisson. Similar with Ederson, obviously Man City, one of the better defences in the league, 3.8 expected goals conceded with 5 goals conceded. But again, Ederson is nowhere near the top of the list when picking up a lot of saves. Now Forest are in there, again, one of the best defences, only 4 goals conceded so far this season, surprisingly, and they're at 4.4 for expected goals conceded. Now Sells, who is the number 1 for Forest, is also only 4.5 million, so he could be a really nice option, and I believe he is just below the list, the top 7 list that we just showed for saves, so he could be a pretty decent pick. Obviously, we've got Spurs in there as well. That would be Vicario, your choice of goalkeeper there. It'd be Martinez from Southampton, Leno from Fulham, and then it would be Verbruggen from Brighton. Now, notice that Arsenal aren't actually on this list. I believe they're just below Brighton, so they would come in at 8th place for the best defences. Again, they've had some difficult fixtures against the likes of Man City, where their XG conceded was very high. I think Arsenal were about 5th in this list before the game against Man City, which would have put them above Villa, but again, they fully parked the bus. 30 odd shots conceded against Man City, their XG is bound to drop. So in terms of clean sheet odds over the next 5 fixtures, we do have basically what I've done, I've highlighted the clean sheet odds above 30% in green and those above 50% in dark green. So again, kind of gives you a good idea of the teams expected to keep a few clean sheets in the next couple of matches. Now obviously Arsenal are right up there for clean sheets. You know, every single game for the next 5 games, they have a 30% or more chance of keeping a clean sheet. Now City are up there as well with 2 games over 50%, and only game week 6 against Newcastle they drop below 30%. Liverpool have a decent chance. Again, like I said, Alisson's a bit more expensive, probably not going to be worth going there, I don't think, even though their clean sheets look decent. There's not on the same level of your Arsenals and Man Cities. But in terms of looking at the green highlighted ones, you can see Nottingham Forest down there have 3 games in the next 5 where they have an over 30% chance of keeping a clean sheet, and then just one just below that at 27%. So like I mentioned with Sells, he could be a very decent option. You know, Nottingham Forest have been good defensively so far, and they do have a decent chance of keeping some clean sheets over the next few. So the picks I've went for our Gameweek 6 wildcard, I went for Raya, Flecken and Sells. I think they are definitely the three standout goalkeepers for me. Raya, obviously picking up a lot of saves recently, sitting quite high on that list for saves. And then Arsenal are definitely on paper one of the best defences. It doesn't show with the stats, but we know how good Arsenal can defend. That is something you can just see with your own eyes. So I definitely think Raya is going to be a very, very good option. Flecken, obviously top for saves. Brentford were on that list as well for a high chance of clean sheets over the next few games. So if you're wanting a cheaper option, I do really like Flecken. And then as a little bit of an outside pick, I do think Sells could do quite well again. Mentioned him a couple times already with that solid Nottingham Forest defence. Now for defenders, we obviously want people who are going to get up the field and going to get attacking returns as well as the clean sheets. So what I've done again is highlighted in green the people who appear twice on the list of most shots taken by defenders and highest expected goal involvements by defenders. Now you'll see Pedro Porro very high on both lists. Definitely one of the most attacking defenders so far this season. He's taken 10 shots and he has an expected goal involvement of 1.1. So again, like I said, very high. Spurs have a decent run of fixtures. I think he could be a very good pick. Now Trent, in terms of shots taken, he's not actually there, but expected goal involvement, he is well above anyone else. You would imagine the majority of his expected goal involvements come from those crosses that he puts in from the wing, whether that's low, whether that's high. Obviously can put in a good cross, so that's obviously not taking as many shots, but in terms of assists, he is going to be right up there. Romero is actually quite high on this list, which I'm quite surprised about, and he's been quite high since pretty much the very beginning, so I'm not sure if these stats are skewed by the first one or two game weeks, but expected goal involvement, he's joint second with Pedro Porro, and he's also taken 6 shots so far this season. So if you wanted someone who is a little bit cheaper than Porro, I wouldn't recommend it, because I do think Porro is going to be a lot better long term. You could always go for Romero if you wanted a Spurs defender. Now Vardiol is up here as well, and so is Kyle Walker. Again, a lot of this is going to come from that Arsenal game. More specifically for Kyle Walker, because he's obviously not had that many games. He actually ended up with 4 shots in that Arsenal game, because it seemed to be it was a lot of the defenders. I think Diaz had quite a few shots as well. Vardiol had 2 in that game, which takes his total up to 6, but I wouldn't really focus too much on that, because it is just one game where these guys have taken a lot of shots. Obviously Rico Lewis is the one who is going to be a hindrance to these two, whether it is Vardiol or Walker. If Lewis is playing, obviously it means that Walker probably isn't, and Lewis will be the one getting forward, and Vardiol will probably be staying back, so getting less attack and returns. So yes, they do look like good picks. Obviously Rico Lewis and stuff do look like decent picks, but with the Champions League now, I think there's going to be a lot more rotation, so you can't really pick these guys and expect them to play every single match. Now obviously we're just speaking about the Forest goalkeeper. In terms of clean sheet odds and defences, you could potentially be looking to cover off that Forest defence with one of the defenders. So we've got the 5 picks here from Nottingham Forest who are getting minutes, who are playing basically. Now we've got Moreno, we've got Murillo, we've got Milinkovic, Aina and Williams. Now Aina is definitely the one I've seen in quite a lot of drafts. In terms of picking ones with minutes, obviously Murillo has played all minutes possible. He's played 450 minutes out of 450. Now Aina's played 414, which again basically nails him on. You know, he's only been subbed a couple times, missed a couple minutes. Now in terms of looking at like attacking potential, in terms of shots, expected goal involvement, it's clearly Nico Williams who is one of the best here. Now he's had 7 shots and he's got an expected goal involvement of 0.6. The only issue with him is now is his minutes aren't too great. He did have some good minutes in the first 3 game weeks, but in the last 2 game weeks it's been Alex Moreno who has started at left back, and while he's not really had the attacking returns that we potentially want, he is only 4.4 million now. He's played 125 minutes over the last 2 games, and he's got the most expected points of all Forest defenders over the next few matches. Now if you've been playing FPL for the last few years, you know whenever Alex Moreno played for Aston Villa, it was usually a good chance to get a lot of attacking returns from him. Now, obviously no shots yet, but I do think over the next few game weeks he could do quite well. And you are getting him at a discounted price of 4.4. So if you're missing that 4.1, or if you're missing that 0.1 and you want to get in a Nottingham Forest defender, I think he could actually be a really nice option for the next few game weeks. Obviously a little bit riskier than someone like a Murillo, who has obviously guaranteed minutes, but I do think attacking potential wise and upside, he could do really well. So taking a look at the Fantasy Football Hub website, we've got the list of fixtures which are supposed to be the easiest defensively, if that makes sense. So obviously the colour of the fixtures isn't going to be the same as your typical fixture difficulty rating. This is purely based on like chances of keeping a clean sheet, essentially, how easy it should be for the defence. Now Brentford have the best defensive fixtures on paper, followed by West Ham, followed by Spurs, Ipswich, Everton, Man United and Man City. Now when you get to like the Man Cities at the bottom, you can see a lot of reds in there, so maybe not like consider as much the ones at the bottom, but the ones at the top you may want to kind of fill, at least cover off one. So if you don't want to go for Flecken, maybe you want to go for Raya instead, these are the Brentford defenders and how they're getting on. So in terms of minutes, Collins and Pinnock are the two who have played the full 90 in all 5 games so far, so they're the ones absolutely locked in. Ayer has played the majority of minutes, he's only missed out on 80 so far, and he has kind of been playing as a little bit of a right back in some games. Obviously Brentford have been mixing it up every now and then between a 5 back and a 4 back. Now one that a lot of people have kind of taken into consideration is Van den Berg, because he's only 4 million and he has been playing quite a few minutes over the last few games. Now he's only accumulated 195, but again he missed out the first couple of games, so it's pretty decent minutes for someone who's just came into it. In terms of attacking potential though, he's not really there. He's a centre back, he's not going to be getting forward. He's really just going to be a 4 million option if you want someone like third on your bench, so you're probably not going to be playing him anyway. And even if you wanted to play a Brentford defender, I would he's probably not the best pick. For me, I do think Collins is going to be the best pick here. He's had the most shots of all Brentford defenders, he's got the highest expected goal involvement of all defenders, and he's absolutely nailed on at centre back. Now I did want to take a look at West Ham defenders, but after kind of like gathering some information, literally none of them look like decent options, so we're going to skip over them and we're going to take a look at another 4.5 million defender who definitely looks like a pretty good option for the next couple of weeks, and that's going to be Leif Davis. Now 4.5 million for Ipswich, very lowly owned players who would be a big differential in your team, and he's someone that a lot of us kind of kept an eye on moving into the new season, because he picked up I believe 19 assists in the Championship last year, so he was definitely someone to keep an eye on when the Ipswich fixtures got a little bit better, which is obviously right now. Now in terms of key passes from defenders, he's currently sitting in 5th, so he's got 7 key passes, again up there with the likes of Trent, Porro, Mitchell, Robertson, some of your best defenders in the league. And he's managing to get up there with the same kind of stats. In terms of expected goal involvement by defenders, he's sitting in 17th at 0.8, but again, considering the players you can see around him, Dallow's in there, Robertson's in there, so Robertson a very popular pick for a lot of people. He's up there kind of matching him with attacking returns, attacking potential at least. Obviously Robertson has the much higher chance of keeping clean sheets. Obviously you can see with the expected goals conceded, Ipswich are the worst defence in the league, so while you could potentially get some decent attacking returns from him, you're probably going to be conceding a lot of goals from Ipswich. But again, you can see the fixtures down the bottom: Villa at home, West Ham away, Everton at home, Brentford away, Leicester at home. It's some really nice fixtures. I think you could get some attacking returns from Leif Davis, but again, very, very low chances of getting a clean sheet anywhere. So these are our picks for the defenders then. We've got 6 picks, and Pedro Porro, one of the most attacking players so far in defence. Trent Alexander-Arnold, we've got Nathan Collins as our pick from Brentford. Alex Moreno as our Nottingham Forest pick. Gabriel, because as I said, Arsenal have one of the best chances for clean sheets over the next few games, and he has scored in his last 2 matches as well, which is definitely a big bonus. Then Leif Davis as well, someone just as a little bit of a differential, another punt that could do well over the next few games. On to midfielders then. Again, we're taking a look at shots and expected goal involvement. Who has appeared twice? Well, Semenyo is on this list twice. He is still the midfielder with the most shots taken in the league with 24, which is averaging roughly 4 shots per game, which is quite high. Expected goal involvement of 3.0. Bruno Fernandes is still up there. As much of a disappointment he's been, you cannot deny that he should be returning. You know, his next few games, you would hope for him to make up for that, but he's had 17 shots so far, yet to score, and he's got an expected goal involvement of 3.1, so still very high on this list. He's yet to have a penalty, which is obviously due to come at some point, but again, Bruno's still looking like a pretty decent option. Now, Mo Salah's obviously up here, no surprise there. Kevin De Bruyne obviously injured right now, so he's not really going to be much of a pick. Tavernier from Bournemouth is also up here. Obviously, I think Semenyo looks like a better option. You know, he's had more shots, he's got slightly better expected goal involvement, but definitely one to keep an eye out on. And then Luis Diaz as well, expected goal involvement 4th for midfielders at 3.4, and he's had 13 shots as well. So do you want him over Salah? We'll look at it in a couple of minutes. So easiest attacking fixtures then, who is most likely to score a lot of goals? Well, once again, Brentford is the one topping the list now, and Mbeumo was on that list of expected goal involvements just a little second ago, and he's definitely one that you're going to want to at least consider for your wildcard team. Some of the best fixtures, or at least the best fixtures according to Fantasy Football Hub, for attacking potential over the next 6. Now, Man United are also there, so once again, as painful as it is, Bruno Fernandes looks like a really, really nice pick. You know, up there for shots, up there for expected goal involvement, and right up there for the best attacking potential for the next 6 games. Now, Nottingham Forest as well, up there, again, having a pretty decent season so far. Arsenal, of course, we all know how good their fixtures look over the next few. West Ham in there, Everton in there, and Ipswich also complete the 7. So obviously we're considering Bryan and Mbeumo, but what other Brentford midfielders are there? Well, there's a lot of people considering Carvalho at 4.8 million. So we're looking at his stats just to kind of compare to the rest of the Brighton midfielders. Now, obviously you can see Mbeumo's well ahead. In terms of expected points, he's 6 ahead of second best for midfielders at Brentford. Definitely someone definitely a clear favourite at least for Brentford midfield picks. However, when you're looking at Carvalho, obviously only played a couple of games recently. With Vissa now out injured for a long time, you probably would expect Carvalho's minutes to drastically increase. Now, he's had 1 shot in the games that he's played and a 0.4 expected goal involvement, so he's not really like blowing anyone away. You know, at 4.8 million, you probably don't expect him to either. I think he's probably a good pick to kind of have like 3rd on your bench. See if you've got maybe an extra 0.3 million and you can afford him over a 4.5 million midfielder, then sure, go for it. But I don't think he's an option that you really want to be starting that often. So at that point, do you maybe just save the 0.3 and look elsewhere? I don't know. Obviously, there's not a lot to go off of so far. He's not played a lot of minutes. Maybe one to just keep an eye out on. But for me, I just don't think he's going to be a good pick on a wild card, at least to start. So Bruno Fernandes next, the biggest pain for the first 5 game weeks. I had him for all 5 game weeks and I was ready to get him out on my wild card until I seen these stats. Now, 3rd for shots for midfielders, 5th for expected goal involvement for midfielders. So the stats are there, he's just not getting the points. Now, again, you can see his next 5 fixtures: Spurs at home, Villa away, Brentford at home, West Ham away, Chelsea at home. They're not the easiest fixtures in the world, but we've seen in the first 5 game weeks that Spurs and Villa are really struggling to keep clean sheets. That would be why Man United are sitting 2nd for the easiest attacking fixtures, because the next 4, there's definitely a lot of potential for Bruno to get something. Now, expected points over the next 5 for midfielders, he's sitting in 9th, so there is obviously a lot of players ahead of him, so it's kind of up to you, but I don't know, it's a difficult one with Bruno. You know, if you want to pick him, you've got to prepare yourself for more pain. I'm kind of on the fence of how I feel about him. I think it could be a decent pick. Whether he gets picked in my final wildcard team, I'm not really too sure. Now for Forest midfielders, again, one of the best attacking potential for the next few games. If you want to pick a midfielder, maybe you don't want to go for Chris Wood up front, the two obvious options here are going to be Alanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi. Obviously, Gibbs White picked up a red card in the last match, so that totally rules him out as an option. He's going to miss the next two matches. So Alanga and Hudson-Odoi are the two obvious picks. Now, very clearly, Hudson-Odoi is better than Alanga in terms of FPL picks. In terms of shots taken, Hudson-Odoi trumps Alanga. Shots taken inside the box, again, Hudson-Odoi. Expected goal involvement, essentially double for Hudson-Odoi over Alanga. Key passes, again, Hudson-Odoi takes that, and they're both the same for big chances created. So if you are on the fence for which midfielder from Nottingham Forest to take, if you do want to take one, Callum Hudson-Odoi is the obvious choice. Now, West Ham midfielders, obviously West Ham haven't had the greatest start to the season, but they're coming into a nice run of fixtures and they do have some good attacking potential over the next few games. So which one should we go for? We've got Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta and Rodriguez. Now, Somerville was considered initially from myself, but he's actually sitting there like is barely any expected points over the next few games. So Fantasy Football Hub obviously doesn't expect him to be starting to play too many minutes over the next few, so we're going to leave him out. In terms of shots, expected goal involvement, Kudus is actually right up there. He's taken 12 shots as opposed to Bowen, the obvious choice. He's only had 7 shots. Expected goal involvements, they're essentially the same, 1.2 to 1.3. And Kudus has actually played more minutes than Bowen as well. He's played just about 19 minutes extra than Bowen has. Now, I think with Paqueta and Rodriguez, they're not really great FPL options. Paqueta was decent for a period of last year, but shots and stuff, again, basically the same as Jared Bowen. You're saving 1.5 million, but I really do think Kudus is the best pick here if you want to pick a West Ham attacker. You're getting $1 million cheaper than Bowen is. He's a very nice discounted price. He's already dropped 0.2 million. Yes, he hasn't been great so far in terms of actually attacking returns, but again, he looks pretty decent. He's not up there with the rest of your midfielders. Again, like I said, West Ham have actually been pretty poor. But if you want to gamble on someone, if you want to gamble on a West Ham attacker to do well, I probably would go for Kudus. I think he does look a little bit better than Bowen. Again, more shots, more minutes, essentially the same expected goal involvement, and he's much cheaper. So Salah or Diaz, obviously a big debate on who's more worth it, basically. Obviously Salah is about 5 million more expensive than Diaz is, and absolutely blows him out the water in terms of stats. You can see against him, he's beating him in everything, but is that worth the extra 5 mil? I'm not really too sure. I think you could do a lot with that 5 million if you pick Diaz. Now, in terms of actual expected goal involvement, they're basically the same. Salah's only just ahead. Now, Diaz is picking up the returns. He's had 3 double-digit hauls already so far this season, and I don't think it's a bad pick or a bad move whatsoever to put him in there and have him over Salah. Liverpool's fixtures aren't great over the next few. And do you want a 12.5 million pick, or 12.7 I think he is now, a 12.7 million player who doesn't have great fixtures, and with the fixtures that Haaland has coming up, you're going to captain Haaland in every single one of those games, so you're not going to be captaining Salah. Do you want him at 12.5 million? I think you can get something similar in Luis Diaz. So again, it's definitely something to think about, but I'm slightly leaning towards Diaz here. And that leads us to our picks in midfield. Again, we do have Luis Diaz. I do think he is just a little bit better of a pick than Salah is. Obviously, I think Salah is going to get more points over the long term, but saving that 5 million is definitely a big thing to kind of get some of the more expensive players. For example, Saka, who's also on this list with Arsenal's fixtures, looking really good. Saka's picked up a return in every single game so far. Semenyo, the most shots for midfielders and one of the highest expected goal involvements. Some really nice fixtures as well over the next few. Reluctantly putting Bruno Fernandes in here. Don't like him, I fell out with him, but you cannot deny that the stats are there, and he definitely looks like a good pick over the next few. Kudus, like I said, a good differential pick, a good out there pick if you want to go for something a little bit different. I do prefer him to a Jared Bowen, who again isn't even on penalties, so You don't really get that advantage there from him. Then we've got Brian Mbeumo as well in there, who is, again, one of the best midfielders. Probably the most essential midfielder to go for on a wildcard this week, as they have some of the best attacking fixtures. So finally, we're moving on to forwards, and again, doing the same thing again, highlighting in green the players who are appearing for the most shots and the most expected goal involvement. Now, obviously, Haaland is well ahead of everyone else. I would be totally delusional to say that you shouldn't pick Haaland, because he absolutely should be in your team, especially with the run of fixtures that they've got. So 26 shots, almost double Cunha in second place, and obviously his expected goal involvement is massive right now as well. So great run of fixtures. You're going to be captaining him so many times over the next few weeks. Definitely want to be getting Haaland in here. Now, Watkins and Jackson, I think, are the next two that I do think have just done really well recently. Expected goal involvement both on 3.3 and both taking 13 shots, so they're literally equaling each other in terms of the underlying stats. Danny Welbeck as well, quite up there. He has 13 shots so far, sitting in third, and he's got a 2.3 expected goal involvement as well. And then Chris Wood rounds that all off with 11 shots and 2.5 expected goal involvements. Again, Chris Wood definitely looking like a good pick. We've obviously looked at the Forest attacking potential already so far, looking at the difference between like Callum Hudson-Odoi and Alanga. I think Chris Wood's definitely the better pick of them all, but definitely one to look at. So we've taken the 5 best strikers there from the list that appear twice, and we're looking at their fixtures over the next few. Now, the ones that stand out to me here are Haaland and Chris Wood. They've got 4 green fixtures out of the next 5. Definitely 2 players that look great. Haaland more specifically, I think it's suicide to not go for Haaland. Chris Wood are definitely a good option, 3 home fixtures in there against Fulham, Palace and West Ham as well. And then probably like an Ollie Watkins, some pretty decent fixtures. Ipswich, a really nice one. Bournemouth at home in there as well. Jackson with some pretty good fixtures, more short term. I think he'd be one that you'd want to book a transfer in game week 8 to get him out. But Danny Welbeck's probably someone I would avoid. Again, has looked really good over the last few weeks, but some really difficult fixtures for him over the next few. Chelsea away, Spurs at home, Newcastle away, Liverpool in there as well. Would probably be avoiding all Brighton players, even if you're wildcarding this week. So which of our 5 forwards are playing against the worst defences? You can see on the left hand side here we've got the top 8 worst defences so far in the Premier League. Now that's going to be Ipswich, Brentford, West Ham, Southampton, Everton, Newcastle, Leicester and Palace. They're the teams that are shipping the most expected goals. Now, we're looking at obviously the next 5 fixtures. We've just taken a look at it. Which of our strikers have the most games against these bad defences? Now, Erling Haaland comes up against 2 of them. Now, Newcastle are obviously considered as a red fixture on the FPL fixture difficulty rating, but they are the 6th worst defence so far. So again, potential captaincy there for Erling Haaland, and a good attacking fixture for him. He's got Southampton in there as well. Now obviously Fulham, Wolves, Bournemouth on paper, probably a decent fixture, especially for Erling Haaland, but in terms of the worst 8 defences, they're not in there, so it's just kind of trying to see who he could score maybe like more than 1 goal against. Now Jackson only appears once, that's a fixture against Newcastle. Watkins also only appears once, the fixture against Ipswich. Welbeck only appears once, again against Newcastle, and Chris Wood appears 3 times. He's playing against 3 of the worst 8 defences in his next 5 games. Now that's against Crystal Palace at home, Leicester away and then West Ham at home as well. So some really nice fixtures, again highlighting even more that Chris Wood is a really good pick on your wildcard. Now another very popular pick that I'm seeing in a lot of drafts is going to be Kai Havertz. Now he didn't really appear too highly on those lists that we showed at the start, but in terms of shots from forwards, he's currently sitting in 7th place with 11 shots. Expected goal involvement, he's only in at 14th at 1.9, but you can see he's kind of, like, again, the players that he is kind of matching with. Calvert-Lewin's in there, Chris Wood's kind of matching him with shots. He's already got 2 goals and 1 assist for Havertz, and he's definitely the one I would go for if you wanted to double up with Saka on the Arsenal defence over the next few games. You can see down the bottom, they've got Leicester, they've got Southampton, they've got Bournemouth. Again, some pretty decent fixtures. And as we mentioned about the worst defences, Havertz actually has 3 of them in his next 5 games. He's got the Leicester game at home, the Southampton game at home, and then the Newcastle game away. So matching Chris Wood with the games up against the worst defences in the league. Now, for expected points over the next 5 games, in terms of forwards, he's sitting in 5th place, which again is very high. You know, the expected points isn't something that is a be-all and end-all you've got to focus on, because you can see Isak in there in its second, who hasn't been fantastic over the next few. But I think if you want to double up on the Arsenal defence, Havertz is definitely the one to go for. A lot better than the other midfielders, a lot better than any of the Arsenal attackers. So it's just kind of that debate. Do you want to go for the double Arsenal defence, where you probably want to go for Raya and Gabriel, or do you want to go for the double Arsenal attack, where you'd go for Saka and Havertz? Now, another pick that I'm seeing in a lot of drafts is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I mentioned in one of my transfer videos to avoid him. Now, his stats have started to improve. You know, he was very low in terms of shots taken and stuff. He was literally in like the 50s. But the last few weeks, he's definitely been improving. You know, he's now up there with some of the best strikers in the game so far. So we're using literally the same stats, because he's basically matching Kai Havertz as well so far this season. So if Havertz is a good option, Calvert-Lewin's got to be a good option as well, because you can see with the fixtures down the bottom, there's some really, really nice fixtures in there. Calvert-Lewin's actually the only striker who's up against 4 of the worst defences in his next 5 games. He's got Palace, he's got Newcastle, Ipswich, and then Southampton as well, with Fulham being the only exception. So I think the only risk here with Calvert-Lewin is, can he keep fit? You want him to be playing all 5 of these matches. Is he going to be fit enough to play all 5, or is he going to get injured after like 2 or 3? So it's one of those ones, like with Havertz, obviously there was some 3 good fixtures, then you'd probably want to take him out. Calvert-Lewin is kind of in the same boat. You know, is he going to have 3 fixtures then get injured? You're probably going to be booking on a transfer anyway. So definitely a pretty good option. You know, he's 10th in terms of forwards for expected points, but he's done well recently. He's on penalties. He's got great fixtures. Definitely probably one that you want to be considering at least. So wrapping things up, we've got my 5 favourite picks for forwards: Chris Wood, Haaland, Havertz, Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. Now, I did want to give a variety of different options. You know, I didn't want to spoon feed and give my 3 favourite forward picks that you should be choosing. So you've got a good list of options here, a nice choice. Do you want to be going for any of these 5 guys? For me, 100%, Haaland and Wood are the 2 guys I definitely would go for. For that 3rd striker spot, it's definitely a toss-up between Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, Havertz. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin being the cheapest, Watkins being the most expensive. I think it does kind of depend on your budget, and especially with Havertz, whether you want to do the double Arsenal defence or go for the double Arsenal attack. But that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like. I think it is a bit of a longer one today, so thank you for making it all the way through if you did. Make sure to subscribe if you are new, and I will see you all in the next one.